my screen.
Yes.
So I think yes. So
Yes.
we had a tools installation and we just had a quick demo of Fury 2.0 in the last two sessions, right? I think I have shared you even the access to Geo as well. On your mail I have sent you, so you should be able to access those as well. So we had just our first demo. So first application we were able to create all by ourselves. So the same you can, I think we stopped at the moment where we had BS. We were just trying to create a dev space, and you can continue and create a simple hello world program in BS as well. So there are like two systems out there. So one SAP GI, this one throughout the 45 days course, you'll be able to use this 1909 system access as for HANA system. And apart from that, so these are the on your desktop straight away. You can use MSTSC remote desktop connection, and then you can connect to this using these credentials. So this is one system which is has all the authorization to create Fury Launchpad roles, etc., and everything, creating OData service, everything. So you can use this completely. And apart from that, what one we have, which SAP is providing for the developer community. So this is SAP Fury S4 HANA 2020 edition called ESV system. So in order to access this, which is provided by SAP for all the developer ecosystem, so this is the registration link. So once you register, you would be getting a different PUs ID. So please make a note of this PUs ID as well. So so there are like some services so attached in the ebook. So I have shared you one ebook as well, right? So in that you will find some 6 services close to which you can use them for trying out various exercises as well. Yes. So this is a list of services section. So there's on page number 19, you'll see demo services for. So the moment you register using this link, you'll get a PUs ready this way, and you can use that PUs ready to access these services. So for master detail flexible layout, you can use this particular approve purchase order sample OData service. And for full screen application template, if you're using it, you can use this particular one. So for each template, generally there are like one OData service has been provided. So we can refer to this data for our templates, etc. So for overview page, for elements application. So these are the specific ones. And for basic OData operations, etc., we can use GW basic. And for OData v4, we can use this particular service. So these are like specific to all scenarios. You have around 6 services. So once you register with there, you can start using these services as well. So this is all about the systems which you have. I think with this, we have had all the systems in place. So let me. So we have got two things to do. So this is a GUI URL. So for ESY system, and rest of the system for 1909, you have all the access, etc. So we're going to add this as well. So you can bookmark these URLs that we can use it when needed. So once you have an account created, so you'll have right now we have all the 3 things. So with the same SAP account, we are going to use some more services. And API ufi.sap.com is the reference, and Business Object Studio we activated, and all the OData service also we have handy in our ebook, right? So we have all the essential things which are required for our application development. Now, one more thing to do is, so once we have this, so we should be able to add this connection endpoint. So the whichever the system endpoint we want to connect, so we should be able to add this endpoint connection in our SAP cloud platform. So how do we do that? So we just have to, once you have signed up for the ES5 account, so you should probably be making a note of the credentials in a notepad. So I have my PUs ready here. So keep this handy always. So there's a developer account. So once you log on to using this in the web GUI using this URL, so this is how we have the web URL. and I'm going to open my Business Studio as well. So earlier we have bookmarked our BTP account. So I'm just going to log into my BTP account. So let's add destination in SAP BTP. Connect to on-premise, correct? So we have to add this endpoint out there and log on to BTP. That's So I'm just logging on to my BTP, so you can use this URL. And then to your account. So in this case, I have my trial account. So you can just whichever instance you would like to access, you can just go to that instance and then so when you are in this instance, you should make sure that you have one dev space available and you have your API key for the endpoint as well available. So and Cloud Foundry has to be enabled. Once you make sure that these three are available, then you can go to your marketplace. So ensure that service is enabled. Cloud Foundry enabled. Okay, and we should have something this way. So all the endpoint etc. should be available for us. Once we have this, go to your service marketplace. On the left side, we have service marketplace, and then we have something called connectivity. So we are going to add a destination using the connectivity option. So in the connectivity section, if you see, there are like two options. So for any other within SAP cloud products or non-SAP cloud products, so if you want to use, so there are like lots of connectors which are all, it is evolving as well. So many connectors are there for connecting to Microsoft SharePoint or any other portals also. There are like some connectors are there using the connectors we can use. So one of the connector is when HCI, so HANA Cloud Connector. So in order to connect HANA as well, we can use some of the connectors. So for connecting to remote systems, we can use cloud connectors. And destination is like within on-premise, any S4 HANA system or any other internal SAP systems are there. So we can use destinations to connect to them. So let's see how do we connect to that. So you can create new destination and you can use here the name of the system you want to connect. Now in this case, I wanted to connect to some ESY system. Okay, so I'll select type as HTTP and I'll say um, on-premise, my on-premise system for Fiori apps. Okay, maybe this I'll consider this as my Fiori gateway system where I am trying to connect. So provide, so you can use this options out there. So where you can provide sap.esy.system. So this is a system URL which you use. Going to open. First, you can give it a test a try. Okay. So you can bookmark this one of the service URL. All the OData service list also you can. So let's test. So if you have created newly the ESY system account, let's test that credentials first. So once you log in, usually it will prompt for a username password and try to see that you are able to. In this case, I think it's already saved for in my case, so it's automatically opening. But when we are accessing the ESY system, it will prompt you for user ID password. So you just make sure that using your P user ID, you're able to connect to the system. So once you are able to see this, just pick the endpoint. So in this case, esy.sap.devcenter.com, and this endpoint you can just provide it as part of URL. And we have multiple authentication mechanism. I think there is no digits. Okay, and so no spaces allowed. So here authentication type, you can select, even by default SAP recommends to go with any of these authentication mechanisms. So in this case, we're going to select, we have SAP identity provider. So we'll going to use in later classes how to use that as well. In this case, I'll just select basic authentication. You can just select basic authentication and the ID which you have registered for ESY system. So, so this is a URL like I mentioned, right? So once you register with this URL, just have to do this step before to do. So you have to register and then you should have some user ID got created. So in this case, I have my P user ID this way. So you should technically have one P user ID uh, after this activity. Okay. So once we have this, then we can use this to log on to the system. Now I'm going to log into the system. And then we are going to add some properties. So we added a destination here. So now see to we authenticated here. So then we are able to connect to ESY system, but we need to authorize it to access as well. So in order to authorize it to access, what we have to do is we have to set some properties. So how and where we are allowing it to access. So whether web ID usage still they haven't updated to BS etc. Still they call it as web ID usage. So it's fine, just select web ID usage and enable these properties. So web ID usage odata underscore web. If you're able to see, let me zoom it a bit. So these are the properties we're going to maintain. So yes, I'll keep this. Add a new destination. So this, so web ID enable true, and web ID usage I'm going to use as odata underscore app. So allow it to use it. Select new property and select web ID enable as true, and then you just have to see web ID system, give it as a gateway. Okay, then specify SAP platform as ABAP. So, so the way we are connecting, if we are using on cloud deployment, we can use cloud as well. So the client, so currently the ESY system, once you log in, so it's it's a 002. So this is where we see the client information. So we can just provide client as well. So which client is it? It's 002 in this case. So which are the system client information that will change. The rest of the fields will be same for which are system you're trying to connect. And one more thing we have to do is we have to enable dynamic destination too. So for multiple destinations, if you're adding it automatically based on that for in the web ID selection, in order to toggle between that, we are trying to add as dynamic destination. So you can just set dynamic destination to true. So this is the last step. So these six entries, if you add it, then we are good to go. So this is how the final list of properties should look like. This should be your final list of fields. Now I'm going to test this in order to see that I'm able to make a connection to this endpoint. So below you'll find an option called check connection. So you just have to try this. So as if the logon etc is correct, then if you're authorized, then we'll get connection to ESY system established. So it says that it's redirects temporarily. That is fine. But as long as you get that ESY system is as connection is established, that means your destination is correct. Now, similarly, if you want to add any other destination or system, you can add. So we have similarly Northwind service. So you can use Northwind service also. You can add as a destination, and you can try around. So multiple destination, anything you have, you can always try to add this as well. So you can use this is free service which is provided by odata.org. So that's you know body, governing body, which provides all the versions, etc. And it's a list of, I mean, many other technology providers like Microsoft is the one who started OData, and it is being co-developed with all other partners. So odata.org is the official website. And the advantage with SAP here is we can, if any REST-based API, then any of the REST-based APIs also can be consumed. Not only SAP's gateway, but any other REST-based service also we can build applications. Okay. So I think once we have this, so we are good to get started with all our exercise and activities. We're going to do a quick dry run on our business application studio with the OData service. So we added our destination, right? So we should be able to testing our destination as well, whether it is accessible from business studio, correct? So let's test the destination from BS, right? We're going to test the destination. So you can go to file and then you can click on, here open, and you can set here, always make note of this. So in BAS by default you'll have many sections where always you'll have something called projects. So you have to just set to projects. um, if you are starting for the first time, that should be fine. So if you point to projects here, you'll see all the list of projects at any time given point. Make sure to open one application recommended, because there might be a chance that the Git instance, etc., we might be having, if at all we want to use. So make sure to have always point into projects, and from there you can pick up which are the project you are currently want to work. So projects is a directory where, how do we use it? So you have to click file and then open, then you should be able to land on the projects folder. So projects is a place where you have it. And first and foremost, once you are in projects, so what we are going to do is you have to go to your view, find command. Here type cf login. So we are going to connect to our Cloud Foundry system now, and you just have to use, you can just view command palette there. You can type cf login. Okay, connecting to Cloud Foundry. You just have to type this once, find command palette, cf login. So I'm going to give my endpoint. So now the endpoint which we have, so if you are on your trial account there, so we have our endpoint here, right? So previously which we enabled. So this cloud endpoint, API endpoint, we're going to add this, provide this endpoint in our BAS. So in the BAS, just provide the endpoint here. So this is the same endpoint which we are trying to connect. So this is the data center where we are asking it to store what our application data in this particular destination. That means that particular AWS location, whichever we selected it. So in the data center, so all our application data will reside in the data center. So remotely anywhere in the world, where the data center is available, we can host our application data there. So that's the idea behind this. Now try to log in with your credentials to the system. So this is my credentials. So I'm just logging to my Cloud Foundry. And if you logged in successfully, what are instances are there? So I have three instances, so I got three instances out here. So I'll just select my organization. So organization is nothing but your instance, and then dev spaces, which all are dev spaces we created, all those dev spaces uh, should be visible here. So we created something called UX development, etc. So I'm going to select the dev space. Now if you see on the below, you'll see organization space has been set and you have been logged in. So once you get this successful message, then I think we have successfully connected our BAS with Cloud Foundry. So this is first and mandatory step. Before you do anything, you have to make sure that you are successfully connecting to Cloud Foundry, right? So this is it. Now we are going to do a quick check, one more check. So one more check. So now sometimes it happens. See, now you wanted to play different dev spaces. We are managing it. Suppose you have multiple dev spaces, so you wanted to check. There are like few commands are there. So cf login is a command, and cf apps is another command. Cf apps. So use cf apps. It should list you all. Go to terminal and click on new terminal. Okay. So here, if you type cf apps, so this should show you which endpoint currently it is pointing. Now, if you see, this is the organization and this is a development space. So whenever you aren't sure that which dev space my application data is being organized. So dev quality, we have mapped it, right? So tomorrow you want to work on different instance, so into the dev space, etc. Then you can use this command to check where your instance is, etc. And the list of apps deployed as well. So directly, instead of logging into Cloud Foundry, instead of going there, we can straight away, using this command, we can look at all the list of apps which are available here. Now, this is one quick way to check the list of apps, etc. Right? So by this, we are able to know that we are connected to the dev space, UX development, and then this is the organization which we have connected. Correct? So this is how we are going to establish the connection. Now, what we try to do is we'll try a sample application. Okay, let's see. You can use start from template. It's taking a while to load. Let's give it a moment. So advantage with the BAS is we need not to install any plugins. SAP manages it through. We created a step called dev space, right? So that's the advantage. So we need not to take care of everyday updates, etc. Also, periodic updates would be auto available. So this is one service out of BTP which we are trying to use. So for developer convenience, we are going to see a lot more services out there in BTP, which will enable us to um, not to worry about whether we have the right environment, etc. So far we are limited with the SAP server. If your server is not yet upgraded, if it is on 1.6, we're bound to build for 1.6 itself. But with the cloud tools advantages, we can build application for 1.9. We can test the application for whichever version uh, straight away. So that's the advantage we have here. So if you see the same extension, so the second tab is for connecting to Git. So next we'll try to do one simple Git connection establishment, and then we'll try to see. And there are like bunch of other options as well, where for debugging and to add any further extensions. So SAP installed extensions will be listed here if we have installed anything, and directly the Cloud Foundry, etc. Also, which are now we have made a connection, right? So those connections also we should be able to see ideally under Cloud Foundry section. And using run configurations, we'll like I was mentioning, so we can connect to different destinations. If you maintain multiple destinations in your Cloud Foundry, we can connect to whichever system we want to our application to run the data. Suppose you are having quality and data, and you are trying to hang multiple destinations. So dev data and quality data, if you want to test application, so from the run configurations, we can maintain multiple run configuration settings, and we can connect to different endpoints as well. So these are primary ways how we manage our applications. I think it's taking a bit time to load, so I'll give it let it load. By the time, I'll just try to close this and try to see if, so by the time that keeps I think it is taking a while. So we'll just discuss few pointers out there. So This is it. So with this, we should be able to have all our necessary things. Now, quick understanding of what all tools are recommended by SAP. So these are the tools, and these are the things which should be available to us for all the Fiori development tools and technologies. That's single shot. So ID currently the one which is recommended is SAP Business Studio. Web ID is also there, but the next version of Web ID itself is Business Studio. So we are going forward in the next coming months. SAP will be promoting BAS as a default editor for building Fiori and other SAP applications. So we're going to stick. So we have activated it and we have the CF connection established. And the underlying technology for all the Fiori app development is nothing but JavaScript. So JavaScript based framework is SAP UFI. So there are like lots of other frameworks out in the market, but SAP has in-house framework is SAP UFI. And right now we have two category of development approaches, where Fiori elements is low code approach, where for the convenience of all ABAP developers, where instead of them having complete JavaScript knowledge, without JavaScript knowledge, they can build all the applications using CDS approach. So if you are familiar with CDS approach, then you can write all your annotations. So Fiori elements are based on annotations which are metadata driven. So all the OData sets will have metadata. So annotations are part of metadata. So I can show you some of the how the annotations looks in a while. So low code approach we call it. Using the template straight away we can build the applications without writing even a single line of code. So we have some editors using the layout editors, etc. We try to tweak around a little bit, but Fiori elements are limited to what the template offers. Okay, so everything is run and driven by the CDS views, and we have other thing called the freestyle approach, where we have seen yesterday some hello world template, where in the freestyle template you are free to build your custom use case. So you are designing a prototype and you wanted to make it into alive, so you can using your all SAP provided framework controls. There are like 850 controls, so you're free to use 850 controls and you can build your own design as well. So freestyle approach allows you and gives the flexibility to build custom solutions. The new platform out right now for OData service development is RAP and CAP. So if you are using SCGW and ABAP NetWeaver based ABAP 7.4 up to 7.4, if you are running it, so this is how the SAP recommendation. So up to less than 7.5 NetWeaver ABAP stack. So you can use classic ABAP programming, that is SCGW, etc., to build your OData service, etc. But the futuristic, if you want your customer to have longer retention of your applications. So if you're building one application right now and your customer falls in 7.5, like ABAP network stack as 7.5, then ABAP programming world for SAP Fiori, that is nothing but your CDS views based or SCGW, both are supported. Okay, you can use both these approaches. These are safe investments in terms of design, and you can good to go. But if you are having a customer who is using ABAP environment with S4 HANA 1909 onwards, greater than 1909, so currently the service test instance which we are using in 1909, so it is recommended to use RAP. So RAP is recommended approach. So if you're someone starting with now, it is good to follow RAP for building your CDS views, etc. Okay, so the recommendations are, see, in ABAP based, the writing of SQL queries is limited, whereas to leverage the advantage of HANA database, etc., it is recommended to follow RAP model, where we can some of the logic we can write in the database layer itself. Instead of pulling all the data into the application layer and writing the logic in ABAP, we can refine some of the logic at the database layer itself, and we can pull out only limited data in the application layer where we can further tweak around. So the recommended one is RAP for 1909 onwards. If you are still on 7.5, recommended approach is CDS use as well as SCGW based development. So this is in short. So how uh, what's RAP to be used and when CAP to be used? For if you are having S4 HANA on-premise system, so RAP is a choice of platform for building OData service, etc. But if you're for someone who is building for the cloud platform, so cloud apps or be it for any cloud integrations, etc., then you can use CAP model. So cap model offers some more additional capabilities which allows you to build use cases. Like I said, if you want to connect to any other Ariba, etc., so then cap model will be more recommended. So we have other SAP products which are cloud based: Concur, Ariba, Success Factors, Fieldglass. So all these products you can leverage cap model to build services and applications on top of it. So these are the two new areas. And if you see, this is a cap model. So current cap model allows us to have these all environments. The front end, not only SAP Fiori, Angular, React, Vue also are supported as a front end. And the environments, if you see on the Cloud Foundry environment, it is supported. And we can use either Node.js as application server or Java as application server. And we can use CDS views. So using CDS views, we can build applications using any of these frameworks. So I'm going to show how to use Angular, React, Vue as well as part of our development. So we can connect using CDS views to any of these UI frameworks. So just like you have SAP Fiori, Angular, and React are open source frameworks, where Angular backed by Google and React backed by Facebook. So we have other frameworks as well. So IDs, now we have seen Visual Studio Code and we have seen Business Studios as well. So Eclipse also we can use for CDS use, etc. We have ADT plugins. So using ADT plugins, we can connect using Eclipse. So these are the IDs and these are the databases. So any database are supported. As SAP in-house is SAP HANA, but Oracle and other database are also supported. So this is evolving. The cap model will allow few more going forward for Python development, etc. as well. But SAP is trying to add more application programmings to this landscape. So that will be evolving as and when it evolves. We can leverage those platforms as well. So this is a basic idea of these two approaches, and this is the future. Now, apart from this, we do have mobile SDKs where for native iOS and Android, in order to build, we have a Swift programming also we can use. It is also JavaScript based programming approach for building Fiori apps for the iOS platform, and we can use Android for we can use the MDK to build for specific to Android device as well. So these are just additional services. So where the development approach will be similar, we use these additional services to deploy our applications to respective environments. And so conversational AI, so CI or the co-pilot which we used to have earlier, all are part of conversational AI, where SAP is still trying around and playing around with providing voice assistant on top of Fiori Launchpad. So those are part of Fiori 3 more robust services are being they are trying to provide. I think still it's not for all applications we do have as on date the voice assistant capabilities, but yes, the smart assistant they call it, so where you can search for the purchase order and any approving etc has to be done right from the launchpad instance. They are trying to provide some conversational context as well. So this is evolving. This is as on date. This is not very matured, so it is still evolving. So maybe in a couple of years we'll see more use cases which will be able to leverage conversational AI. And the most dramatic change happened in S4HANA recently is UI adaptation and extension. The extension earlier used to work. I think you have earlier asked me about how do we extend my inbox, etc. So if you see, if you are someone in 1909 onwards, then your extension is just done in minutes. Okay, within a day you can do extend everything. So that's how the flexibility services are refined and improved. Earlier we had to do lots of work for tweaking around the standard Fiori applications, etc. But managing extensions for the standard Fiori applications, it has been made very easy. So we are going to discuss about in a couple of other sessions where I'll talk about flexibility services. Using flexibility service, how do we extend easily? And we are not going to talk about screen personas, but screen personas allows us to extend some of the functionalities of the GUI codes as well. And we have theme designer for theming and branding of our launchpad, etc. So we are going to see about that service as well. So there's a quick check of what all tools and etc. we need to know before jumping ahead. So this is just a quick wrap up. Okay. So there could be a template slight difference in the way you see in Visual Studio Code and here, but that should be perfectly fine. So you just have to select SAP Fiori. Let's select start. So now I can use either list report or freestyle. So let me select work list application this time. And work list application is the difference between master detail and work list is here you have more drill down data, where here master and detail you'll have selection refined, and then the detail page also will be viewed simultaneously on the home screen. Now here, if we have successfully added destination, so we should be able to select the destination as well. So click on connect to system. And here, if you see the drop down, so we could see ESY and ESP system. So we have added our destinations here, right? So we add ESY and ESY system. Two destinations are available. So the both destinations should be visible to you when you use connect to system. So only when we maintain a system out there, then only the destination will be appearing in the BAS. So as we have successfully connected to Cloud Foundry and etc., so now we are able to automatically retrieve all the data. So if you haven't connected in the Cloud Foundry the previous step, so we'll not be able to get this step. So if you wanted to connect to a ABAP environment, so we can give the credentials of ABAP environment straight away from here as well. Okay. So I'm going to select ESY system now. And here it asks me to enter user ID password. I'll just, here there's an icon over here. Just select this not to authenticate. It says incorrect. We cannot. We used authentication as username password. If we used different authentication, okay, it says incorrect. Let me double check my user ID. So as we have used username and password, so we are supposed to connect to it. Authentication incorrect. Let me double check. Yes, it is there. So I have multiple actions, that should be fine. Yeah. So just you have to restart once. So after destination, I haven't restarted. So just restart once your BS. So now in this case, if you see ES5, so if here it's added the destination connection it shows, but it's not able to detect. But technically the same ES5 system, other instance when I selected automatically it got authenticated and it was showing me the drop down values of all the services. So what we have to do is for the same thing for ES5 system to automatically detect. So what I have to do is just have to restart once. So my BS, so I won't restart now. If I restart again, it might take a while to load. So but technically after adding a destination, try to restart your system so that it will automatically authenticate to pick up the service we want. Okay. So I'm going to select any of this any of the service here. So let me select one. So you can select any service. Let's test the endpoint. That's it. So select next. So here now they're like these are the three entities which are listed out there. Select one entity, and this is just a test exercise. So you are free to select any of the options. Okay. So we are just going to make sure that our application is able to connect to the system. So here, the new projects, if you see this module name, so SAP BS supports full stack development. We have something called MTA approach. So multi-target applications. So for different target environments, we can build applications. Now the environment which we are trying to build, we call it as HTML5 module. So the module here for if you by default, it will pick HTML as the module, but we can specify. So this you can consider as your project name. So this is my OData test. I'll say OData test. So always makes to add a namespace. Namespace is just a folder name which will allow, it's like package name, you can call it as consider. So our application name, whenever we want to access, it would be like ux dot OData test. So that would be our application name. So ux is a namespace in under which OData test application is actually available. So you always have to remember your namespace. Try to keep it constant for all your applications. And like I said initially, you have to select projects as your path. So always make sure your path is pointing to projects, so that whenever you created an instance, you can read the application, you can load the application from the project directory. Else you can always choose the directory from this option. So always first point to projects. And right now for deployment and Fury Launchpad configuration, I'm going to set as no itself. And here I can choose configure advanced options. So for which version I wanted to deploy and run this application, we can choose a version. So I'm going to select 1.90, and I'm going to say quads are. So quads, dark and light are Fury 3 themes, and Belize is part of Fury 2.0 theme. Now these are the new themes which are part of light and dark are the part of Fury 3.0. So select finish. And it says installing dependencies, so let it install. So by the time it installs, so I'll just go back to so the UFA framework uses something called MVC concept. So I think we are familiar with it, but I'll just give it a quick understanding of. So when it comes to MVC concept, so in short, if you say all our OData services, so model refers to our OData. So we use OData as a API to connect to our tables. So all the database tables, we might have hundreds of tables, or maybe whatever table we have. So if you want to build an application on using the data of a specific table, called, suppose we take an example called sample services from flight example we have taken. So flight service, sample service, in that if you have some sbook table is there. So if you are using some table called sbook, then in order to build an application using a flight booking as an application, if you want to build an application, then the table can be exposed using OData protocol. And using OData protocol, if you're exposing it, only the fields, etc., which are listed as part of the OData service API, only can be consumed in the application. So the table can have hundreds of fields. Okay. But in the OData service, if you're exposing only 10 fields, only 10 fields will be consumed by the application. So we can restrict the number of data, the data points, etc., that is being exposed to the application layer as well. So that can be restricted, and all the CRUD operations, etc., can be handled. So, but why do we use OData as a model? So OData is very lightweight. So if at all you want to have a clear idea on it, so what benefits it offers. So if you see a Northwind example or any example, so service. So these are like, you can consider this as your tables. Now I'm going to use some query called $format equal to JSON. So the same data content I'm going to view in JSON format. Now if you see, each entity, we call it as entity EDM models. So each entity can be called as a table. So you might have a category table, or it could be a combination of tables which are related using associations as well. So categories is one table, customers is one table, employees is one table. So all these are exposed as entities. So now in our application, we can access all these entities. So if you see here, these are like some of the associations as well, where you can connect categories using a foreign key. In SQL, we call it as foreign key, etc. Right? So from categories, we can connect to customers. So each category, who are the customers, and what are the orders they have ordered based on customer. We can connect these two entities to the categories entity. So that we call it as navigations or associations in terms of OData service, but technically these are nothing but it's a primary and foreign key relationship. That's it. So this is how multiple entities are exposed in OData service. And if I try to read one service now, so customer service I'm trying to read now. So if you see here, uh, the beauty of OData service, I can show you. So this whole data, see now there are around lots of records. If you see, there's lots of records, but instead of uh, for best example is image. If you see, it looks like it's odd. Why do we have to have this much of text? So it's like all the pixel values, etc. It's stored in a raw form where you have this content. So holding an image file. Now, if I copy this in a notepad, so if I copy it in a notepad, so I'm just copying this image, and if I save this on the desktop, and I'll say it as image.txt. Okay, so this is one thing I'm going to. One more thing, what I'll do, I'll copy the whole data. So I have copied the whole file data. If you see, I copied the whole data. And now in the same notepad, one more notepad, I'll say as my, I'll save this as odata. Okay, so this is my odata.txt, and whereas other is image. So let's see the size of data. Okay, so I'm going to see my size of data. So if you look at the image size, now if you see the image size, if you see, it's just 16 KB. Whereas the same image in if you store in retrieve in image form .jpg or etc. How much it would cost you for a very high resolution, etc. It might cost you around in MBs at least, right? 6 MB, 7 MB, 8 MB, etc. Right? See, what if I have an application? So if I'm trying to load all the images, so in this case I have images around 40-60 images. See how much load of data has to be transmitted from the DB layer to the application layer. So if you see the chunk of data, how much we are trying to read from the database, it's very huge. So storing in XML format. So this is an XML notation where XML and JSON notation. If you're storing the data in this, the system will be able to interpret it the low cost. Low cost when I mean and low size. So 16 KB is very minimal for an image. Now let's me see. See, this is just about image we are talking about. Now all the images and all the data put together, how much data we have in the OData service. So if you see in the OData service, so you have lots of images, right? So we have images, so say lots of images are there. Now, if I look at the data of the whole payload, so this is my payload. It's just 100 KB. Okay. If the same data, if you have to read from as traditional way using all the data types, so it would be the call will be very costly. Costly in the sense the performance will be affected because you have to go and hit the service and you have to say, boss, load this particular image file, load for particular these background images or what are sales order files, etc. So all your data is very lightweight when you're using OData API. So that's the advantage and flexibility of OData. So OData allows us to handle huge data in very light. It's a lightweight model, you can call it. So that's the biggest benefit if you ask me as by using OData. And we can restrict even the number of fields, etc., which can be accessed. So securely application, if they're using it, instead of if you give access to the table directly using SQL query or any option, so the chances are that they can uh, misuse some of the content or tabular data because of less access privileges. So if you have someone is having a access privileges, so if you see SQL injection, etc. So these are some ways where some of the database loopholes can be exploited and they can directly access DB. Of course, those are very minimal, but OData API will straight away restrict at the application front itself. So they cannot actually bypass OData API to access all the table information. They'll get access only to the entities which are part of the OData API. So in this case, if you have only, there could be 100 tables, but those are only 10 are entities are as exposed as entities. Then only the 10 tabular information only will be able to use it, and end user cannot access beyond these entities which are available in the API. So this is a kind of protection and lightweight model which it offers. So that's the benefit of using OData API. Clear? So we got our OData API, and for building of our UI. So for building of your UI, we are using definitely SAP Fiori and UFI. But what is the programming syntax we can use? So all the four syntax are supported: HTML, JSON, XML, and JS. But SAP recommends XML. So XML has been taken as a default choice for writing the code. Due to the biggest benefit is readability. So we have better readability in terms of they look similar to HTML, and because they are custom tags. So whatever SAP tries to create new controls, it can extend new controls very easily, and it can be consumed very easily. So when if you're extending an application, extend if you're someone already familiar with JavaScript, extending and reading JavaScript based UI application would be very tedious. So if you want to extend further application, so you cannot actually classify the data, etc. So XML is a recommended approach. So but we're going to use JS as well XML in hand to hand for or building of UI. But JSON and XML are not meant for building UI applications. It's like they're like we can do, but the syntax is too tedious to understand and to extend as well. So earlier in the first 20 apps were built by SAP using HTML itself. So using HTML, they built the Fiori applications, but they found it, not very friendly to extend because SAP, if you see, they tend to provide support for even EC system as well as for S4HANA system and multiple versions of it. But to maintain long release cycles using HTML is very tedious. So XML offers better readability and better extensibility. So keeping that in view, SAP adopted XML as a programming choice for writing or UI. Okay, so all the UI view we use XML as writing, and for the models we have a couple of models. Like OData model is a default choice. We do have JSON model and XML model as well as resource model. So we have talked already seen resource model, nothing but I18 where etc. where it allows us to hold all our static text. So controller we write only in JavaScript. There is no other way to write our logic. So for controller is a place where we write the logic. So UI whenever it interacts with the DB, it interacts using the controller logic. So controller logic tries to notify the model what to fetch, so which data to fetch, etc. And this is how the cycle of communication happens. In the view, user types in a form, etc. He clicks on a submit. Then the submit logic is written in the controller, and the logic allows us to fetch the data from the model. So multiple binding approaches are there, one way, two way, etc. So we'll talk in detail later. But in short, you have a framework you builds applications using implements using MVC. So these are the backbone of our programming environment. We write logic in JavaScript, we write view in XML, and we use OData model to hold our data retrieved from the database. Because it is lightweight, we are holding and storing all our data in this format. So I think this is all about it. Let's see if our application is ready by now. So just go to your application, and I think it is not appearing here. So it might have created. I'll go to my file and click on open, and let's me select projects folder. Like I said, you always have to check your application in the project folder where you'll be able to see all. So we have created something called OData test. If you see, so our project is available. Just click on open. It's perfectly fine if it reloads because each instance when we select it tries to load the data. So we quickly talked about this as well, and we should be able to test our service, and we should be able to locate within our project sector which is a model file, which is a view file, and which is a control file using this exercise as well. So OData test, it's loading. Just give it a moment. So it's trying to do some background deployment, etc. So let it install all the necessary tools. So just click on this reload button, then automatically your project, etc. should be all. So all the tools and Node.js, etc. are installed. And so now if you see the structure here, see this is what we are talking about. So the controller folder if you see, the template has automatically generated controller. So the logic we write here is in terms of JavaScript, and this is what our MVC, the logic controller. And the model, if you see the model, so this model is nothing but, here we have model is defined in the manifest in this case, but we have model.js file which tries to specify how do we load the data. So if you see, this is a JSON model. So we are here, they created device model here, and they set the binding mode as one way. So generally model folder, objective of model folder is to add multiple data models, but in this case, as part of SAP best practice, they are putting all the models information in the descriptor file called manifest. So we'll find in the manifest, but technically model folder is being used, but it is being referenced from the manifest. So if you see the data sources, so here there's no in WebID you will have wizard mode where you can view it, but in this case there is, I think they're still able to create those extensions as well for BAS platform. Right now we have only the manual way you can look at this information. So if you see the data source, this is the OData service which we have added. So EPF rep using the template. So OData v 2.0. So this is a model which is being used. So MVC architecture, controller logic, and in the view folder, if you see, all are extend ending with .xml. So XML we write all the view part, and control file all in the .js etc. files would be part of our control. So this is the MVC architecture in short to practically visualize it. And like as we know, so here all the syntax. So these all are XML syntaxes, nothing but custom tags which SAP has coined this title, table, etc. as part of UFI framework library. So where do we find these XML tags? So ufi.sap.com API is a section. So we'll understand deeply about how do we use and consume API. So within this, if you look at it, we are going to use M library. So M is a library which for responsive apps, we're going to use what M. So we're going to use all the controls. So if you see, there are like lots of controls out here under the M library. So we are going to use all these libraries, and how we'll talk about more about how to use this. But I think let's run this application now and see whether we are able to achieve or Html5 connection, etc. So select preview application, and you will see lots of options. But you're free to select any of option. It's just sandbox would be with sandbox or without sandbox directly, without no FLP, nothing but without sandbox or with sandbox. So for unit testing, etc. we use, and we do have mock server. I'll talk about mock server later, but I'll just select start Fury run as a first option. Let's see if we are able to get the data. See, objective of this exercise is to know that we are able to connect properly with the ESY system, and we are properly able to establish connection with the Cloud Foundry, and to study MVC architecture folder structure. So these are the objectives of. Let's see if we. Let's wait for it. So it is recommended to use Chrome itself. So Chrome has a regular frequent update. So we need to have a browser which is HTML5 compatible. So UFI framework is a HTML5 compatible language. So we need to have HTML5 compatible browser. Right now, all browsers are migrated. If you are someone using Internet Explorer in your as part of your organization, then it doesn't if your application do not work better in IE. It's always mandatory to have Edge browser for running your Fiori application. But even then, uh, I have seen instances where it is there are like some challenges in with respect to certain controls, some new libraries, etc. If at all you're working on, you might face some issues with Edge browser as well. So it is recommended to use Chrome for all your Fiori applications because it is fully HTML5 compatible. So we need some browser which is HTML5 compatible for running our Fiori applications. So it's taking a little bit more time. Let me select wait. So this is a mimic. It is mimicking a sandbox. So this, if you see, this is a sandbox where it's not an actual launchpad instance, but it's just a sandbox. Yes. Okay. Okay. Fine. The data, I think the data, it's there is no supplier found, etc. So it's a data issue. But technically, what I can do is I can go to my network tab. Let me reload this. Just so we can go to our network tab. So you can right click inspect element. So Control Shift I, and we can try to check the network tab for the call. So here I think there is a data issue. Because of that, there is no supplier record for that particular entry which we selected. So I can check my service from the here. It still shows us pending. Let me wait for it to complete. So in this OData call, we should be able to see the data. If you're able to see the data, then we are have successfully connected and a connection to the ESY system. Let me select. Let me see the preview. So this is a call. So call is happening to ESY service from our instance. So it's trying to do get suppliers. Okay, still pending. Okay, yeah, the request has been completed. So if it shows us 200, so we have 100, 200, 300, 400 series, where 200 refers to success. It says it post request has been completed. Now if I go down here, so here I can check on preview straight away. But I think here, as it's a batch call, it doesn't allow us to